What's up, everybody? It's your boy Devon Taylor here, aka Deezus, and this is my podcast, Deezus Take the Reel. No, this is not a religious podcast. It's a podcast where we're talking movies, we're talking life, we're playing all sorts of weird games, and we're gonna have some fun conversation today. And I am super excited for this one because we are talking two of my favorite characters. These are two badass motherfuckers. It is James Bond and Batman. And joining me to talk this crossover podcast episode, it is Brian Thomas. What's up, Brian? How you doing?
What's going on? I was like, how's he going to introduce me? I don't know how I should prepare for this, but because it's funny, backstory. You sent me the show notes. I'm like, wait a minute, are you going to go right into a certain part or not? But no, it's thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this. We've been planning this out for a couple weeks now.
Yeah. I caught your podcast a couple weeks ago and I really liked it. And I was like, oh man, this is so awesome because I love how very specific it is, but at the same time you can, expand so much on it. Like I love how you do the birthdays and all that kind of stuff. For those of you who don't know, Brian Thomas, he does a podcast. It is called Batman vs. James Bond, or is it just Batman vs. Bond?
The Batman versus James Bond show. I mean, sometimes I say Batman versus Bond. Sometimes people will call it BVB. So, as long as you remember to go on, just check out BatmanVersusBond.com. There you go.
Yeah, it is awesome, guys. So make sure you check that out. But we'll plug all show stuff at the end and whatnot. Before we start the show, though, just a reminder, episodes of Deezus Take the Reel go up every Tuesday. Make sure you're rating and reviewing those on iTunes. These rate and reviews help out big time, and they make my downstairs move a little bit. So, so rate and review on iTunes, and then you can also find the podcast on Stitcher, Spreaker, Google Play Music, and on my YouTube channel, Deezus12 as well, and follow me on Twitter at Deezus12. So, let's go ahead and get into the show. The introduction segment, as Brian saw, I love how you sent a reply back. You're like, oh my God, that's hilarious. It is, who the hell are you? Because, I'm kind of getting to know who you are, but the people out there don't know who you are. So just talk about what you do, not only your show, but just, you as a person.
Me as a person. Wow. How much time do we have here now?
We'll say try to do it in 2 sentences. Like if you just had to put yourself out there.
We'll just say that I am a 30-something, what I would call, I don't know what you define as a nerd, Deezus, but I would say that I'm kind of a movie nerd, more specifically, obviously, for these kind of movies, but I am a movie lover. I could go, what was I watching earlier? Let's see, I was watching part of Batman v Superman, shocker. I was watching part of Coyote Ugly, and that goes into your guilty pleasures, which I definitely want to mention.
That's a deep cut too, 1999 or 2000. Ooh, that's a good one.
Oh, it was right around there. Yeah, I remember watching that. But make a long story short, I'm a married guy, just got another puppy, and I have 2 dogs now, so I'm living the dream, as they say. And in that spare time, I do my podcast, and the podcast is just for fun, talking about the 2 things I love. So here I am, and I'm out of the D.C. metro area, between Baltimore and D.C.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what I was about to ask. I was like, oh, what section are you in? I'm in the good old Midwest, Missouri, right in the middle of the map. Springfield, nice. Missouri. Bet you didn't know Missouri had one of those.
Actually, I did, yes. I've my 9-to-5 job where, you got to pay the bills and so forth. I've run across Springfield. I thought it was a joke when I first saw it. I was like, it's pretty cool. To say you live in Springfield.
I think there's 13 Springfields in the country, like in various states. However, apparently the theory is the Springfield in The Simpsons, everybody assumes it's Springfield, Illinois, but apparently there was like a interview with one of the writers. They hinted that it was based upon Springfield, Missouri. So that's
there you go. Awesome.
I'm not a big Simpsons fan, but it's a cool factoid. Brad Pitt's parents live close to here as well. Yeah, cool. Springfield, Missouri actually has a lot of movie connections. One last random fact, because I love random facts. You've seen the Bourne franchise, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, not Jason Bourne. That's still on my to-do list. I have not watched that yet.
But you saw, I think they revealed at the end of the third movie, I think, like when they reveal his name and like where he's from and everything. He's from
David Webb.
Yeah, right. He's from Nixa, Missouri, and Nixa, Missouri is the sister town of Springfield. It's like 20 minutes up the road. And they even have a sign like on the welcome to Nixa that says home of Jason Bourne underneath it. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. So we're getting into this whole episode is Batman versus James Bond related in honor of Brian's podcast, because I think this is a really cool way. It works out very well because I'm not the biggest James Bond guy. I will admit that up front, but I do love me some Batman, obviously. I mean, I love Batman. I'm a big comic book person, so I'm definitely a nerd myself. So I came up with a game for this theme. And so pretty much what the show's going to be today, guys, is we're going to play this game coming up. It's called Batman or Bond. And it's just some hypothetical situations. And Brian's going to decide who he'd rather have in this said situation. And then we will go ahead and talk about our favorite movies. We will talk about Skyfall for Brian Thomas's favorite James Bond film. Watched that super late last night. And then my favorite Batman film is Batman Returns. And then afterwards, we'll do story time about what brought us to be intrigued by these characters. So the game, like I said, is called a Batman or Bond. So I came up with, well, it's a mix of, I found some of these situations online, but then I came up with a couple of myself. So we have some hypothetical situations I'm going to run at you, and I'm going to say, like I said, just depending on what the situation is, it'll be like who you'd rather have, like based on like their skill set, that kind of stuff. Make sense?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Now,
right. Does it depend on the James Bond actor, or does it depend on the Batman actor?
I will say go with, for the sake of this game, because I do have a question that's specific to it. So right off the gate, who is your James Bond and who is your Batman? We'll just go with that.
Ooh, all right. My James Bond is going to be Daniel Craig. Okay. And for a while it was Pierce, and now watching the Sean Connery, sometimes it's Sean Connery, but overall, I like the spin that I will call it spin that Daniel Craig has put on this. He's put the more realistic approach with it. Yeah. He's put more of an emotional side, something that Pierce wasn't able to do. You can blame it on the writers, director, whatever.
It's a whole different tone, like whenever they switch actors too.
It is.
Yeah. So we'll go with Craig for Bond, and then. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, man.
Oh, I was going to say, if we're talking about Batman, then I will say I'll go Christian Bale, minus the voice like this, I will say that, once again, he has that, Batman can be anybody. I really felt that approach with him. Okay. I think that those would be my two. But like I said, I still like the other ones. I mean, well, not Clooney. I tried watching Batman and Robin the other day. I just like
Clooney is not a good Batman at all. That was such a miscast. Okay, so you got Christian Bale and we got Daniel Craig for the sake of this game. For the record, Christian Bale is also my Batman. I think he pulls off the best Bruce Wayne out of any of the actors, first and foremost. I think he really got the balance right because, they're two different entities almost. You got Bruce Wayne, then you got the Batman. So I really love Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne. Christian Bale is also one of my favorite actors of all time. Like, I love him. I have a American Psycho tattoo.
I was about to ask, you must love American Psycho because I know I do.
That's it's my second favorite movie of all time, but it's my favorite like singular performance in a movie. So Christian Bale definitely takes it for me because I love his Bruce Wayne, but I love his Batman too. I'm even into the voice. I dig it. The voice gets me going. I like it because it's just creepy and it's kind of strange almost because think about it. It's this guy dressed up as a bat. Like, what do you expect? So I actually like the voice. And then as far as Bond goes, Pierce Brosnan would definitely be my Bond. I think he takes all my favorite elements of Bond and kind of combines them the best. Like he's one of the more suave ones for sure. I think Pierce really had the look too. Like whenever I think of like what James Bond would look like, I think of Pierce. So I really like the tone of the Pierce Brosnan ones because they didn't take themselves too seriously. Like they were a little bit more serious than like, some of the more ridiculous ones like Moonraker or something like that. But at the same time, like it didn't take itself too seriously. I'd say that era is like the John Wick of James Bond movies. Like it knew what it was doing and wasn't taking itself too seriously.
Yeah, there's a movie I just watched the other day, John Wick.
I'm so excited for John Wick 2. I can't wait to
the sequel for that. I don't know how they're gonna. I'm sorry to change that. I was thinking you probably like this. Just theoretically, if the director of John Wick ever directed a Batman movie, let that sink in, because I would throw that out there anytime.
I think that'd be really cool. I don't think it'd work with Ben Affleck's Batman because I don't think his fighting style would match up with it. But no, I totally get what you mean because I love the action of John Wick. John Wick is so awesome. I want to do a whole episode of John Wick. That'll be the second time you come back. We'll just talk all John Wick.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get into this game. So like we said, you are armed with Daniel Craig, James Bond, or Christian Bale, Batman. So, first hypothetical situation. You're at a bar talking to a girl. I know you're a married man, but stick with me. You're talking to a girl at a bar, and then some douchey guy comes over, and he's trying to steal your thunder. So you need your wingman to come, address the situation. Who do you trust as your wingman in that situation?
Oh, my wingman. It's going to have to be Daniel Craig's James Bond. Just how he's able to talk to women. I mean, I'm not saying Bruce Wayne doesn't have game. Okay, yeah. I really do think that Christian Bale could. I mean, because he rolls up to a hotel with two models in his Lamborghini and buys the hotel. That's pretty badass. But I will say that any movie I've seen of Daniel Craig's James Bond, he can just talk to a woman, give her this look with his blue eyes, and then it's like, okay. Give me the bottle Bollinger and caviar, and I'll see you in the morning. So
I respect the choice because I was thinking about this yesterday. I mean, we'll get into this more with when we talk about the movie, but I don't think Daniel Craig's all that good looking or anything. Honestly,
no, he's not.
I don't think he's a good looking, but he does have mad game. Like he does know how to talk to the ladies. So I respect that choice. All right. So next hypothetical situation. Hulk Hogan pops out of your closet naked and he puts you in a headlock. What do you do? Who do you call on to get naked Hulk Hogan off of you? Do you call in Batman or do you call in James Bond?
Well, Mr. T is probably not going to be available, so I'm going to call on Christian Bale's Batman because, let's just say theoretically that the Batman suit behind me is, it would be Christian Bale. It's the Batman Begins suit for those of you who can't see it, so which I'm a big fan of. So yeah, I would just hope that he's there, and then he can just throw on the suit super quick, and then just do what he has to Hulk. Why were you in his closet naked?
I don't know, brother.
Not that. So,
yeah. No, I actually agree. I agree with you on that choice as well. Because one thing I noticed in the movie as well, Daniel Craig does not do well with really big guys.
No.
I mean, he always has some sort of help, so I don't know if he'd have the help. I don't know if he'd have your back like Batman would. Okay.
No, he did battle a wrestler. Now that you mention it, Inspector being Dave Bautista, Mr. Hanks, and that
probably
was
the coolest
the
action.
Fights.
That's one of the not even one of the best action scenes in a Bond film, but in an action film, that train sequence is so good, so good. So yeah.
So, but like you said, he did, spoiler, kind of have help at the very end because he would have lost. He practically did lose. So
he did in Skyfall as well. The Komodo dragons helped him out. So yes, Batman I think would be a formidable opponent for Hulk Hogan. All right, next situation. You're hired as a private investigation to tail somebody. Well, in this case, you are either tailing Batman or James Bond. Who do you think you would be able to keep up with?
Ooh.
So this kind of turns the tables now.
Yeah. So who would I be able to keep up with?
Because they're gonna be trying to shake you loose. They're gonna be trying to get rid of you.
Right. I mean, they both have the gadgets, and I keep thinking Batman Begins for some reason, just because I'm thinking when Bruce Wayne Batman was being pursued by the Gotham police, and he was able to put the stealth mode on his tumbler, and so. I mean, I'm not saying Bond can't hide in the Aston Martin or whatever he has. Maybe he has the jetpack in the trunk of his Aston Martin. That could be very possible. I'm gonna have to say Batman would be harder to keep up with. That's a tough one. Wow. I need to put more thought in that next time. Yeah.
I don't know. See, on this one, I think I'm gonna disagree because most of James Bond's, I mean, yeah, he drives fancy cars and everything, but at the same time, they're still regular cars. So I mean, I think he would have an easier job at blending in. I mean, as much as the stealth mode on the tumbler works, at the same time it totally doesn't. It's still this tank machine.
Yeah, it is.
So I don't know, and I think it'd be I think I'd rather tail Batman because I mean it's not gonna be hard to keep track of a dude in a bat suit and a cape. So I think so. We're
but
gonna.
he is the theatricality and deception. That he has
It's
those
true.
in his favor. So he can disappear pretty quickly. I was thinking about that also. I mean, Bond maybe not as much. It depends on what kind of gadgets he's been equipped with.
I mean,
So
think of the
that's my only
beginning.
thinking for that.
Think of the beginning chase inspector whenever he like blends into the crowd of the parade afterwards. Like that's one of my
Yep.
favorite opening scenes for Bond as well. I think that's such a cool opening scene, and he really just blends in. I don't know, it'd be tough. So looks like we're splitting the difference on this one.
Yeah.
Alrighty, next situation. Okay, so it is life or death, and you are captured by some person, and he needs a jewel, a precious jewel stolen. Who do you trust to go steal that precious jewel? Do you trust James Bond to do it for you, or Batman? Your life is on the line.
I will go with Bond on that one. I would trust him. I think it always comes back to blending in and the gadgets and so forth. This is one where he can put on the tux, and kind of blend in and so forth. I mean, I think Bruce Wayne, he could possibly get away with it, but I think that Bond, especially Daniel Craig, Bond can do that.
I mean, I think Batman definitely has the means and the technology and whatnot, but I mean, James Bond's what he does. He does espionage. That's his main thing. So
exactly.
So I think he'd probably make a killer jewel thief. Has that played out in any James Bond films? Because I feel like it should now. All right, so we got two more situations in this game. So far you've chosen James Bond once, Batman once, and then James Bond again.
Okay.
And then James Bond. So James Bond is your guy right now so far. Number 5, this is inspired from one of the episodes of your podcast I listened to. It was around election time. That was actually the first episode I listened to. Okay. So the way we're going to do it is, I mean, you had people voting, so now the decision is yours. You need to elect one of these guys president. Who do you choose to run and lead our country? A guy that goes in the shadows in a cape, or a guy that really likes to drink and have sex with women? That sounds very presidential to me.
Hey, given the candidate, sure, why not? This one, I have no hesitation. I will definitely say Bruce Wayne. It's going to be, especially Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne.
Oh, yeah.
I think
that's one damn good-looking president right there.
Yeah, and it's so funny, and I know you don't talk about TV on here, but what gave me that idea is because I watched the TV show Arrow, and Arrow is pretty much Batman on TV.
Oh, yeah.
And he decided that he wanted to run for mayor, and he became mayor. So here he is playing mayor by day, and then he's playing in the suit at
which
night.
I think is so cool.
So easily see Christian Bale doing that.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, because I do love that. I'm behind on this season of Arrow, but I love Arrow too. Those are the only TV shows I watch. I watch all the superhero shows, but I'm behind this season because I watched a shit ton of movies, like especially in the past 3 months. So I fell behind on TV, but no, I totally see the angle you're playing at, and that would be cool. Like you got Bruce Wayne running the country by day, and he's still kicking ass. He's Batman. He's commander in chief now. He can pretend that he just knows Batman and send Batman to go get ISIS and whatnot. Oh man!
Yeah, and the powerful friends, as he's always claimed to have. All his fundraisers and so forth.
I mean, he's got the money,
sense.
Obviously. I mean, he's got the money.
Yeah, so I think he could pull it off very well. That would be.
I think James Bond could be president, but I don't think he'd last long, and his candidacy would be just scandal ridden, scandals everywhere.
And honestly, I don't think that Bond likes the politics. Looking at the movies,
I don't think
he always falls into that gray area.
Yeah, Batman could see the advantages of politics versus Bond. Yeah,
right.
I don't think he'd really care for it.
Yeah. Batman would be willing to play the game, but then he can play the game on his terms later on at night.
Exactly.
So, and remember, Batman has no boundaries, so.
That's true. That is true. All right, yeah. Bruce Wayne for president. Get on those posters, people.
Yeah, I want somebody to make a picture out of that.
Oh, please.
Photoshop that for me, please. Yeah.
All right, and the very last situation, this is a classic situation that every best friend asks their other best friend. Would you help me hide a body if I committed a murder. So, who do you choose to help you hide the body? Do you pick James Bond, who has murdered a lot of people? Batman, depending on which Batman, he's also murdered a lot of people.
Yeah. It's going to be Bond. I mean, he is the assassin and so forth. I'm sure he could find some way of hiding a body. Can't believe we're talking about this, but I mean, his go-to. I mean, even Pierce was known, and Daniel Craig. They've been known to throw bodies in the dumpster, and but still, besides the point, I think that they're better at hiding bodies. Just looking throughout the whole James Bond history, so. Yeah, I guess that I'm sure they could come up with something. I mean, hopefully.
I think James Bond be the right guy. The real answer to this question, John Wick, because he has people to take care of the bodies. Boom, call back. There we go. Wrap up the show.
Just a couple coins, and call up the
It's
boys.
done.
That's right.
Your body, the body's gone. All right. Well, that was our game for this episode, guys. That was Batman or Bond.
I enjoyed that. That made me think on that. See, here I come thinking, I'm like, just shut off all my brain cells. Like,
I love games. I play a game at the beginning of every episode. I try to make them all different too, and this one was very fun. So yes, I enjoyed that very much. I'll do another or blank game in the future. But let's go ahead and get to what the show is about. We are talking about our favorite Batman films, our favorite James Bond films. So Brian chose Skyfall, and I chose Batman Returns. So Brian, you are the guest. So we will start with you. So why is this your favorite James Bond film?
Well, I was recently talking about this last week, as a matter of fact, because I did a rankings episode, because somebody online asked me at the end of last year saying, where do you rank all the Bond films? And because I had never talked about it. I've been doing the show it'll be a year in March, and I never really put a lot of thought into it. I can easily say what my top 5 ones would be. I would say GoldenEye, Goldfinger, I put Casino Royale in there and so forth. And, when I think about it, this is maybe where you can understand this as a film fan, and after watching so many movies, you get nitpicky after a while.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it's almost to the point, and believe me, I'm not an expert when it comes to this, but I would say I wish they would have done this differently. I wish they would have used the cinematography was kind of weak, and so forth. How it was written, the score, any little tidbits like that, and.
Yeah, and especially with James Bond films, like I mentioned earlier, with each actor, with each era of James Bond, we get totally different styles of James Bond films too. So it's less so with Batman, because you're still generally getting the same thing, but just different styles obviously as well. Right. But with James Bond, you're really getting these different types of films with the different James Bond. So that makes sense. So I guess that also factors into have you seen all 24? I assume all 24 Bond films.
Yes.
I have seen.
Unofficially, there's 25.
Yes, unofficially, yes. I think
I
have seen.
I had the non-pleasure of sitting through that, but yeah.
I have not seen that one. I probably don't plan on it, but I do want to catch up. I've only seen about 10 of them, I think, so I'm trying to catch up. But yeah, so you think about what makes a James Bond film. So Skyfall, what really makes this just your preeminent James Bond film?
It put a spin on it. Now, I would, and I said this before, Casino Royale started something different completely for, James Bond reinvented himself, and I've talked about this before also, is that current events, have an effect on movies sometimes, what people are looking for, how movies, let's put it this way, post 9/11, how can you make a movie about a spy? Because the world has changed.
Exactly.
It's not just one big bad guy. There's a whole bunch of different bad guys out there and so forth, terrorism and so forth. And this movie did touch on that. It really did put an interesting spin on it, because not only did it talk about terrorism, you have I'll do a spoiler alert here, but the MI6 headquarters in London was bombed. People died and so forth. They addressed that. And, to have James Bond, you have Daniel Craig reprising his James Bond, which he did very well establish already, but you see him get injured, you see him weaker, and you see him to the point where he's not the James Bond, or he's James Bond, but he's not trying to get himself back together to where he was before. That's one of the two things that really stood out to me with this film. So I've seen Skyfall is one of the films I've seen pieces of it, but I've never
gotten to sit through and watch it all. And that's one thing I love about doing this podcast. I love when people pick movies I haven't seen, or so that way I'm forced to rewatch these movies. But yeah, one of the two things that stood out, I mean, one, obviously, Javier Bardem is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's so good as the villain. I absolutely loved him. But then, two, yeah, it's a very interesting look at James Bond because, like you said, he's failing his fitness test. He's not as good of a shot because he has that injury, and, like, all these things factoring in, and he's questioning, like, should I keep doing this? Like, am I still good enough to do this job? And like you said earlier, it kind of brings that emotional depth to Bond.
Oh, yeah, especially this one. You put it, like I said, it has that emotional aspect, I guess, in a way, just because of how his relationship is with his boss, M, in here. When they mention about his past, you just see that look on his face and so forth. And that's something Daniel Craig can do very well. He's not just... Well, I can't say pretty face, but it's not something that just I don't think any actor, you can throw any actor in and they can just do it.
Yeah, that's one thing that Daniel Craig definitely brings. Like, I think that Daniel Craig is the best actor out of anybody that's portrayed Bond, and you gotta think this is early Sean Connery. So, I mean, I don't think he was the actor who we know him as today, when he was playing James Bond. So I think Daniel Craig does do the best acting in any version of James Bond. And like you said, his relationship with M, with Dame Judi Dench, who also plays that role fantastically. And yeah, they have that rapport. I love how do you feel about Sam Mendes as a director? I feel like his directing style really suits like the James Bond world.
When they announced Sam Mendes was going to direct Skyfall, I'm thinking, all right, well, I think American Beauty, which is that's a damn good movie there. Because Kevin Spacey, he deserved to win that Oscar.
Oh, he got robbed.
Not just because he's Kevin Spacey, but because of what looking back now, what Sam Mendes was able to do with that. It's a character story, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what do you think? I consider Skyfall more of a character study. That's how Mendes directs. He has such a vast filmography, I guess you could say. And but for him to do a James Bond movie when he's not, I mean, he's done action movies like, say, Jarhead and Road to Perdition, ones I haven't seen before. But for him to do that aspect, but still do the action scales in such a big, the sequences, I guess you could say, on a big scale. Thank you. I think that, bringing in the new characters, reintroducing Q in there, reintroducing Moneypenny.
What a name.
There's always a joke in there. What's that?
I said, what a name. That's one of my favorite names of anybody, because I love how they all have, these ridiculous names in James Bond. There's always at least one character in each movie that has that name. But Eve Moneypenny, played wonderfully by Naomi Harris. But I really dig Sam Mendes' style. And like you said, he's a character director, and I'd say Spectre is also a character study.
Yes.
As well, because that's a more retrospective James Bond. Spectre was fine. Like, it's not my favorite, but it's not bad by any means either. But I love the visual style, especially in Skyfall. You got Roger Deakins in there doing the cinematography.
That's one reason why I love Skyfall. Man. That's one reason I am more into cinematography more than I ever have been now. Now with movies, when I hear Roger Deakins is going to be doing it, I'm like, I want to go see that just because of that.
Yeah.
Now that he's going to be he only did one James Bond film. He didn't want to come back for Spectre.
He does a bunch of different stuff though. I love his work with Denis Villeneuve. I love his work with him. He did Sicario and Prisoners. I mean, Roger Deakins is the man. Like the end climax, like the whole thing, like anything that takes place at Bond's old house at the end, like that whole thing, like especially the sequence, like after Silva blows up the house and you have the fire and man, when James Bond sinks into
hell out of that movie,
and like when James Bond sinks into the water,
the Hong Kong scene, Hong Kong. The lighting in Hong Kong, I mean, we've all seen it in many movies before, and I mean, I've never been to Hong Kong, but just how he does that widescreen pan out of, you just see Bond in the Mercedes just driving into the city, but then it does a pan out of it, and oh wow, the pan out of near the end, when he's back in London, he's standing on top of the building, you see the flags in the background, and it slowly raises up. Oh, I can't get enough of that. I really can't.
Yeah.
And the story for Skyfall, it's not a complicated story. It's pretty straightforward. It's a Bond movie that can it could be a standalone movie. Now I know that another movie kind of says it isn't, but I still consider it to be.
I think most of them are in general. Like they all have that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the loosely connected universe. I mean, yeah, all these things are happening. And it's the same character, but at the same time, like they all do kind of stand on their own, or at least in their eras as well.
Right. You said back to Javier Bardem when something about a one-shot take that you mentioned the Spectre opening, but when it came to Skyfall, they did a one-shot take of Javier Bardem's Mr. Silva walking off that elevator and just talking about how his grandmother showed him how to get rats off the island. He's like, and I forget how it goes exactly. I should know this by now, but he's like, boing, 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 and then one rat after another, and 2 rats, 2 survivors, and this is what she left us. And just how he's going through that whole spiel, and you can see Daniel Craig kind of trying to hold it in. He's smirking as that elevator opens. I'm like, how can you not? I mean,
Bardem, he has this real interesting line delivery, because I just watched No Country for Old Man for the first time last week.
I need to see that. Yeah.
Fantastic film. I mean, I'm not a big Coen Brothers fan, but I mean, Javier Bardem, I've seen him in some like real like shit movies too. Like he does some stinkers. So I was always like, man, what's the hype around this guy? Like, but I haven't seen his best performance. Saw that, and then seeing him in Skyfall, I'd say those are easily his 2 best performances. I mean, him as Silva, he had all these like little intricacies. Like you saw him get frustrated, which I think is really cool in a villain. Like when something doesn't go his way, you like see him get upset about it because he cares that much about his villainy. Like I love that. Like a villain that really buys into what they're doing. Like that's what makes him so scary. So Silva definitely a highlight of the film. Do you score movies when you do movies? Or
I do. I do it out of like a 5 out of 5 stars usually. So
where does that
Skyfall is
rank?
definitely 5 out of 5. By far. If I got rated higher, I would. 5 martini glasses, 5 Walther PPKs, whatever you want to call it. There's not one thing that I don't like about it. It's one that I can. It's a 2.5 hour movie, but it's a 2.5 hour movie that I do not get bored with. And that's not something you can say about a lot of 2.5 hour movies. If we're talking about a movie, even like say The Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises, maybe there's a little patch in there that I would say, okay, well,
Rises for sure has a couple lulls in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a philosophy when it comes to like length of films. Like I'll watch no matter how long the film is, if it's worth it. Like if the story requires it to be that long, then I'm in. I gave Skyfall a 4 out of 5 stars. I think it does have a little bit of pacing issues for me. I feel like there's a little filler that could have been taken out here and there. But I mean, it would still end up being a 2 hour and 15-minute movie. So I mean, there's really not much you can cut out of it. But I did feel like there was just a few filler scenes. But I mean, but the performances are what really does it in for me, and the Deacon cinematography. Fantastic. One of the best Bond theme songs, Skyfall from Adele.
Yeah. Oscar-winning Adele. That's right. Yeah.
Isn't that so cool?
The only times I watch the Oscars, and I'm like, somebody I wanted won. I was like, yes,
almost every time, like most Bond songs always get nominated. Like I was thinking back because Sam Smith won. The Jack White, Alicia Keys one was nominated way back when. I mean, there's a bunch of them that I noticed. I was like, huh. I was like, so pretty much if you do the Bond song, you're getting nominated for an Oscar, possibly.
If not, or a lot of people are going to send you a lot of hate mail. Yeah, that
too.
can happen, and we'll just take the case of Madonna.
That too.
Yeah.
All right, before we close off on the James Bond talk and switch over to Batman, I got one more question because I was thinking about this. So I don't know if you want Daniel Craig to continue. I honestly don't think he's going to. I don't think he wants to anymore. And I'd like to get a new. He's done his 4 Bonds. I'd like to get a new face in there. I don't know about you, but so who is somebody you'd like to see take up the mantle of Bond? Like, what kind of Bond would you expect from them?
I would say 2 choices, and I don't think I think they have a chance of happening. The one who's supposed to happen before Daniel Craig was Henry Cavill, Superman, Man of Steel. I think that he has the suave. He would go more. You were talking about Pierce having that look of James Bond. I think Henry Cavill does. If you've ever seen The Man from U.N.C.L.E.,
That's what I was about to say. I was like, that's like a James Bond audition film, essentially.
It really was. And it was a great throwback, too, to spy movies.
Oh, yeah. I really like
that
Man
60s
from U.N.C.L.E.
vibe. Guy Ritchie did a good... It's a really good film, if no one's ever seen it before. While he played in American CIA, I believe he is British.
He's British.
So there you have that also. I'd like to see another Brit playing a Brit. That would... I mean, I'm not saying that, Pierce was Irish, so he could do that.
Yeah.
Sean Connery was Scottish. I don't really care so much about that. He's always been my number one choice. Tom Hardy's name has been coming up in it, and I wouldn't mind seeing Mad Max or Bane and playing James Bond. That would be pretty cool. The direction, it's and we'll talk. You and I will talk about this on my show also, but I would say direction-wise, they can go in a whole bunch of different things. It's going to be tough. I think they need to keep with the darker tone, but they can bring back just something like, say, a Thunderball. I don't know if you've had a chance to see that Sean Connery James Bond movie.
Yes, I've seen that one, and I totally agree. My pick would be, I have two picks. One, I'd like to see if they went with, I love the Idris Elba pick. I think one, it'd be, super cool as a young black man myself. I think seeing a black James Bond on film would be super cool. Idris Elba is a fantastic actor. And like you said, I think with him, you could continue kind of the dark route, but at the same time, I think he could be he's a James Bond that's been doing this a long time, and he's like the grizzled vet, but he's also very suave. Idris Elba's a very good looking man, so I think he will be the definition of work smarter, not harder, because he's done it so long. So I would like to see that kind of Idris Elba, or if they're gonna go the other way, because I think they might go a younger route. I would love to see Dan Stevens. He is from The Guest, and he was on Downton Abbey, and he's in the Legion TV show coming up. But check out The Guest, though. Oh my goodness, it is such a cool film. It's like a Carpenter throwback, and it's a thriller, and it kind of goes in this slasher route. And Dan Stevens is so good, and there's traces you can see in that performance of you could be like, I could see him playing James Bond, and he's got the look too. He's a real good-looking guy. So those would be my two picks. But we've spent a lot of time on James Bond, and it's time to give the other badass man some love. We're talking about Batman. I love Batman. Like I said, I'm a big comic book nerd. I love comic books. The DC movies have disappointed me a little bit, but I was not on board with Ben Affleck when he was announced as the casting, and he proved me wrong. I think he did a really cool Batman. But like I said earlier, Christian Bale is my Batman, just because, like I said, you got the Bruce Wayne, the Batman dynamic. Really love it. But I chose Batman Returns. I was real torn between Batman Returns and Batman Begins. So I'll preface by saying Batman Begins is still the better Batman film. It is. But Batman Returns is what I grew up on, essentially, because my parents had this big old movie collection, and I would always see the Batman Returns VHS, and the cover of it was so cool. It had him, Catwoman, and Penguin heads stacked up.
Yes.
Has the smoke in the background. It feels like a Batman movie, and that's why I love Batman Returns so much. I think Tim Burton really understood the character of Batman, and I wish he would have gotten to do more Batman films, honestly. And Batman Returns is just the perfect mix of, you got Batman, you got Gotham City. I'm pretty sure this movie takes place exclusively at night. I'm almost positive. It's snowing. It's very cold. You feel it feels like Gotham City to me. Still love Michael Keaton's Batman. He's my number 2 Batman. Because Michael Keaton also pulls off a really cool Bruce Wayne. You got the him and Catwoman dynamic with Michelle Pfeiffer. She was one of my first crushes as a kid. I'd say in my first 5 boners of my life, Michelle Pfeiffer might have been one of them. I think. I'm not for sure. But
mine was Kim Basinger.
But I love.
I had the Batman '89 cards and the picture of Kim Basinger. I was like, she's my dream girl.
She was hot. She was hot. But yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer in there. I was like, this is, and she plays such a good Catwoman. I love her Selena Kyle way more than Anne Hathaway. But yeah, I just really love it. I think the mix of the villains worked with having Penguin and Catwoman, because you have Catwoman who's not really a villain per se, but then you have the Penguin doing his thing. And I like that this isn't an action-based Batman film. This is him, doing more as Bruce Wayne. You get to see more of his detective work. things like that. So I really love Batman Returns. I think it's it's awesome. It feels like Batman. Like, what do you think about Batman Returns?
It's I went back and watched this during Christmas time, and then because it's been on HBO, and then I went back and watched it on my own, and it's a very enjoyable Batman film. I grew up, when I grew up, Batman '89 was just released, so that's my era of Batman that I grew up with. So I would always say, when people say who's your favorite Batman, I would say, well, definitely Keaton, because he's been my Batman, but then came Christian Bale, so he's now my Batman.
Yeah.
Not yet Ben Affleck, but besides the point, though, I grew up with those. Batman Returns was when I was in elementary school, so here I am. I have all my, I had the Bat Missile Batmobile.
Oh yeah.
If I knew what I did with that right now, I'm still kicking myself in the ass right now, because I really wish I could put it on display back here.
I think I
Besides
had.
the point, though.
Oh, I had the Batman Forever Batmobile, which is my favorite Batmobile. But
that's a good one. Going back after, however many years and rewatching this and really paying more attention to it, it's a very dark movie. It is a Tim Burton dark movie. Yes. And that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. I would say that it's not something I would want a little kid to watch, possibly, but I was able to watch it. But I think that the villains, it's more of a villain movie as opposed to a Batman movie. I think that, I loved seeing more Batman. I loved the parts of Batman that we had in this movie. When Commissioner Gordon says, "What are you waiting for? Cue the signal," that whole spiel. Then you see the signals at Wayne Manor. It's a nice winter time, snowing. And then, Michael Keaton's just like, he has his hand on his fist, just pondering possibly about his parents. What happened with Vicky Vale? Who the hell knows?
Who knows? But, yes.
Who knows? Who cares? But then all of a sudden the light comes in his mansion, and then you just see him stand up like, "My people need me. I must go," and so forth. And I think it's one of Burton's best shots out of both his Batman movies. And that's.
I agree. I agree with that one. I think Batman Returns in general, I would say, is one of the best shot Batman films. Like you said, I just love the atmosphere of Tim Burton's version of Gotham City, because he does that stuff so well. The color schemes really work. But, guys, Christopher Walken is in this film. Christopher Walken is in a Batman film.
Yeah.
Oh my
he
God,
was
it's
the main
Batman.
villain in this. Sure, people talk about Penguin and they talk about Catwoman, but
you forget Max Schreck.
Max Schreck he's a sinister son of a
yeah.
bitch. He really is.
The way he manipulated Penguin and, playing the puppet master, I love it. Like you said,
yeah.
I would say this is a very villain centric Batman film, but wouldn't you say almost all of them are? Because Batman has just such a cool rogues gallery. You have, that's why there's always multiple of them in all of the movies.
Yeah.
You got Riddler and Two-Face teaming up together, and then you got Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze. So I'd say a lot of the spotlight in Batman films usually goes towards the villains, for sure. Danny DeVito as the Penguin was such a good pick. He had the look for it, and this is when Danny DeVito was still acting. I think he is just cashing his Always Sunny checks right now, and he does not care about anything else, because they also don't even write that show. He doesn't even have to do anything. But this was when Danny DeVito was, it's back in the 90s, and Danny DeVito was a top-notch actor at that time. And he really brought something interesting to the Penguin. Not only the look, when you see him eating these fish, and he comes down to the party, and he's just covered in fish blood and stuff, and they're introducing him. That's one of my favorite scenes. They put the Christmas antlers on him and stuff. It's one of my favorite scenes of a film, because he's just
reclaim your birthright.
Oswald
Cobblepot. Then he's like, or still worse, my nose could be gushing blood. Bites the guy's nose, and then he's talking about the girl that he's with, saying, "I'll show her my French flipper trick." I'm like, all right, Danny DeVito, you had me that. It's great. He's such a he is a perv, especially when it comes to putting the button on the girl sweater. Here, wear a button. There you go.
And we were talking about heroes being the mayor. In this movie, we have the Penguin running for mayor of Gotham City.
It makes sense, though.
It does.
I don't know what it was like when he was in the Batman '66 series. I have no idea, but I like the spin they did.
Yeah, that is, I think it's the farthest from like the comic versions of the villain, the Penguin, because the Penguin is mainly known as like a mobster, as like a gangster. He doesn't like actually have these physical deformities. He really just has the nose, and he's known for like his gadget umbrellas, which we got in the Burton film, which was awesome.
Yeah.
But this is a very different spin from the traditional Penguin, because like I said, he's usually more of a gangster. But I really I like this version because they gave him a tragic backstory, and you felt for the Penguin. I think when you can make a movie where you sympathize with the villain, I think that is also a big sign of an awesome villain.
Yeah, his parents pretty much said, okay, well, you look different, and we're not going to have that, so we're just going to dump you in the sewer and bye. And for that you feel for him. And when it even comes down to the ending of it, his death sequence and how the penguins are carrying him, that's really sad. That breaks my heart when I see that.
Got me. Like, I will not lie to you guys, there was a moment where 6-year-old Devon was crying at that scene. I'm like, his penguins, they're like his children, they're carrying them away. Oh man, like I think Tim Burton really knew how to get the emotion out of Batman films.
Yeah,
because it's the same way for Batman '89 as well, and I mean, and even into Batman Forever, because Tim Burton was still a producer on that one, and that's one of my favorite guilty movie pleasures. I did an episode on Batman Forever not too long ago. Love that movie for all the wrong reasons.
That's okay. There's a guy out there. He's a big movie podcaster. His name's John Camp. He always says all film is subjective. So if you like that movie, then there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm with you. I still can enjoy Batman Forever. It's not the Burton films. It's definitely not the Dark Knight trilogy. But it's something about that Batman Forever I can still watch. And it had a lot of good things to it. It really
does.
It was a different take on Batman.
Ironically, though, the weakest Batman, though, out of any Batmans, like, honestly, I mean, Clooney was bad. But I'm convinced in Batman Forever, like, he's not even playing Bruce Wayne or Batman in that film. Like, that's a completely different character. But I've already gotten into that enough. But yeah, Batman Returns is just, it's, like I said, it feels like a Batman movie to me. And it really does.
Yeah, something about I guess Michael Keaton, when he rolls up, when the circus gang is terrorizing Gotham City after the first tree lighting, and he's just has that, it reminds me of old school animated Batman when I used to watch that.
When he he doesn't give a shit how many people are around him. He's like, I'm about to kick all your guys' asses. Like, you don't even know.
And he's walking in the middle of the movie. He's like, he sees the big guy, the big strong guy, like the wrestler kind of looking dude, and he's like, go ahead and hit me. He punches the guy, and the guy's like, you have to do better than that spiel. And then he puts the dynamite on the guy. Then he smiles. Yes. When Michael Keaton, he's done it like twice. Michael Keaton smiles as Batman. That's gold. That's gold right there.
And like talking about
that is a meme. Just waiting. There's plenty of memes out there. I know I've used them also. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Danny Elfman score. Danny Elfman's Batman theme. Excuse me.
Danny Elfman's one of the best.
Batman Returns might be better than '89.
Oh, I think the one for Returns is definitely better than '89. Yeah. It almost had like a Nightmare Before Christmas, as you can see with the poster. And my other tattoo is my favorite movie of all time.
Nice.
So I'm a big Burton fan. I'm a big Elfman fan. And you heard influences of Nightmare Before Christmas because they were released around the same time. Batman Returns was '92 and Nightmare was '93. So they were released around the same time. And you can kind of see the influences on that Batman Returns score, I think. But yeah, it's a fantastic film. Like I said, it still ranks as my number 2 Batman film. Batman Begins is still the best Batman film, I think. But Batman Returns, it just holds a real dear place in my heart, and I love that film. So that will go ahead and do it, guys, for the movie talk. We just have story time left over. See, as you can see from, I have Who the Hell Are You, and that's a good segment title. I still have not come up with a better title than Story Time. It'll happen eventually, I think. But that's what we're still rolling with it. We're 12 episodes, or this is episode 11. We're 11 episodes deep, and I'm still calling it Story Time. But that's okay. So Story Time, what I asked Brian to prepare for his story would be, what was the moment that you really began to be intrigued with James Bond? Because I'll talk about Batman. So like, what was
Okay.
just the moment where you were just like, man, James Bond is what made you really click with it?
You know, I mean, I always go back to this story that I mean, my dad, like you said, how about it must be something about, I guess when we grew up, about our parents would have the VHS collection of tapes.
Yep.
And VHS, for those of you that don't know, is something very, very old. They're called video cassette tapes.
You found
Something
them
you'll
at
never experience ever again.
Blockbusters. What?
Yeah. But my dad had a James Bond collection, specifically more Sean Connery and Roger Moore. And Pierce Brosnan's GoldenEye was just released in '95. And, by the time it made it onto like one of the movie channels, HBO, what have you, I watched it. I happened to be over my grandparents, and I was like, James Bond. I was like, my dad's always talked about this. And I was like, I'll give it a whirl. And I loved it. And then came Christmas time when Nintendo 64 was out.
Yeah.
And came GoldenEye 64.
One of the best video games of all time, of ever.
It is. It absolutely is. I still think it's, better than most of the other games that are out there, Call of Duties, what have you, and so forth. But that game got me more into James Bond. And then came, this is where I guess I geek out or nerd out, because I got into film scores. Tomorrow Never Dies came out a couple of years later, and I bought this for one of my first scores, as a matter of fact, was the Tomorrow Never Dies score done by David Arnold. And it didn't even have the whole score on there, because that's, for some reason, that's how they released them. But I played that, and I'm listening to the Bond theme, and they have, Sheryl Crow's rendition of her theme song on there. They have Moby's James Bond theme on there. And I go back and listen to it. I was like, I want to go back and watch other Bond movies. And that's just, ever since then, I've been into it. And if somebody was to ask me what I'm a bigger fan of, I think I've answered my own question within this last year, is that I think I'm a slightly bigger Bond fan than I am Batman. And it's really close, because it depends on what I'm in the mood for. I mean, I was watching The Spy Who Loved Me last weekend, and then a couple nights ago I was watching Batman v Superman.
Yeah.
It just depends what I'm in the mood for, but I love both characters. But something about Bond, there's there's 24 movies to choose from, so pick your favorite flavor.
Exactly.
Depends on what you're in the mood for. But I love, it's just the characters. I love the music that goes with it. The story, sometimes some are better than the others, but you add it all up, it's GoldenEye, the movie, GoldenEye 64, and that Tomorrow Never Dies score, and then that's what did it for me. So yeah.
Gotcha. I would I've already said that Batman definitely edges it out for me, but I've become more appreciative of James Bond of the past couple of years, because like you said, I think it's just crazy, the 24 movies and this franchise is still chugging along, like with no sign of stopping, but because of the way that they do it with bringing in new actors and like kind of refreshing the world and things like that. But I really like the way they do that, because, if you are starting to not feel this James Bond, like you said, you can turn on a different one, or, a new James Bond isn't too far around the corner. So I just really love the history behind James Bond. But it's so crazy, because, they're such similar characters, though, too. That's why I think your podcast works so well as well, because, I mean, you can contrast them, in drastic different ways, but at the same time, like, they are so similar. And these kind of, tortured, broken men that, do things that other people can't do. And I think that's just super cool. And so what brought me into Batman, like I said, the Batman VHS cover of Batman Returns, I always thought it was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. And then I had already been big into Tim Burton, and I was like, Tim Burton did superhero movies. I was like, that's awesome. Like, and this is me when I'm real young. And then just like getting introduced to the character of Batman, it kind of blew my mind. I was like, there's a guy that just like dresses up as a bat and goes around punches people. I was like, that's fucking awesome. But then of course, like I said, as I grew up and like really grew to understand like the character of Batman, like he has such a richness to his character. I mean, he's been around for 60 years. I mean, that's nuts. So like as I grew up and like really started to like pick Batman apart and like what he really means as a character, I think it's really cool. And they kind of do a similar thing with the James Bond. They switch it up, cast a new Batman, and here you go, here's a different flavor. and you definitely get the different flavors between, you know, the Burton ones, then you got the Schumacher ones, then you got Nolan, and then now we got Snyder / Affleck, which I'm real excited for Affleck's solo movie. Super excited for that. But yeah, Batman is just this. It was just this super cool character, and like I said, I grew up on superheroes. I'm a big old nerd, and like these are the days when, you know, I'm only 22. I'm still pretty young, but at the same time, like going on 23. But yeah, like I'm still young, but at the same time, I can still remember back to days where like we played outside all the time instead of like just like on our phones and all that good stuff. Like we'd play outside and we'd play pretend, and I was always Batman. Or if Batman was taken, I was Robin, because Robin was like just as good. So I was like, all right, well, whatever, you're Batman, I'll be Robin this time. I'll still kick your ass. And like that was just our thing. And I've just been obsessed ever since. He's my number 3 superhero of all times, behind Spider-Man, The Flash. Those two are my favorite. But Batman is...
Wait, who's your number 1? Sorry.
Spider-Man.
Flash or Spider-Man?
Spider-Man is my favorite, but the show has definitely bumped The Flash like closer to it. Like The Flash is such a cool character as well. But Spider-Man, just the fact that he's just this everyday kid. He doesn't even have that good of powers, and he's just trying to do some good things in the world. Like, that's it. He's a simple man, and he still manages to kick ass. So I love Spider-Man. Yeah. But yeah, Batman, it's just a cool character, and the way it's been translated through comics, through film, through TV. It's had multiple different TV shows that were awesome. I love the Batman Beyond series. Love Batman Beyond. Yeah. I thought that was a really cool, and of course, you know, the classic Batman the Animated Series, one of the best TV shows of all time. So oh man, we didn't even mention the one of the best Batmans, Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, Kevin Conroy. Another the Joker, Mark Hamill.
And Mark Hamill's Joker.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, you'll probably enjoy it as a Batman fan, because you'll notice the references. But Batman: The Killing Joke. It's
I saw that. I saw that whenever they did like the Fathom events for it, and like the behind the scenes stuff. Yeah. Yeah,
that's an interesting Batman. I think the animated sometimes, and we'll talk about this on my show also, but the animated does stuff that I guess the feature films aren't, or the live action aren't able to do. So I really did admire that. And Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy, you know, those two voices.
They're so good, and like the way you can hear their chemistry like through their voices is fantastic. Yeah. I'm like most people. I have the general opinion. The prelude of The Killing Joke, I knew why it was there, and it made sense. Yeah. Like I knew why it was there, and it made sense. But at the same time, it like kind of, I guess we can probably talk about this more later. But once it got to the actual Killing Joke part, like it was like pretty much like straight from the comics, like the pages on the screen. And like you said, I think that's something that they're able to do with animation versus live action, because live action, it can't look too goofy, you know, but it's like, you know, animation, you really have the freedom to do what you want to do with the source material. And I think they did a really good job with it. I loved Mark Hamill doing the song at the end. Like that was terrifying. Like it was good. I did enjoy like the actual Killing Joke portion of it. But
and to know Luke Skywalker is technically the Joker.
And he's also the trickster.
And the trickster, yes, the trickster. Like, yeah, that's
nuts.
I like him as the trickster.
Oh, I think I like him as the trickster more than I like him as the Joker, honestly.
Yeah, that's really good. Let me ask you real quick. The new Spider-Man, Spider-Man: Homecoming. Now we have Michael Keaton playing for the other side, coming in as a villain. What do you think about that?
He was just nominated for
all over the place with that.
He was just nominated for Birdman. Now he's playing the Vulture. It's all coming full circle. Hero to villain. It's all full circle. I think Keaton has had this plan since he was a kid. I'm real excited. I think Keaton's Vulture looks real terrifying. Like when he's just like, "Don't get in my way, I'll kill you." Like they didn't do anything fancy with that or nothing. He just said it outright, and it's just like, oh man. Super excited with all the different superhero films. One last thing that I'll mention before we close out the show is what is your take on the Joker? So you're not a fan of Jared Leto's Joker, correct? If I remember right on one of your podcasts.
He would be of all the Jokers. If we're ranking Jack Nicholson's, we're ranking Heath Ledger's, and I don't count the Adam West Batmans. No disrespect to them. I just have never really watched them at all.
Yeah.
But I will say that Leto would come at the bottom. I think that he had so much pressure after, Heath Ledger's Joker is not just one of the best Jokers we've ever had. He's one of the best villains we've ever had. And I will go on record on your show specifically saying that he is a better villain than Darth Vader. Now, you can say hate me out at BatmanVSBond.com. It's okay.
Nerds are going to kill me. I love Darth Vader, don't get me wrong. I think he's kind of an overrated villain. I think the prequels kind of lessened him, but that's a whole nother topic.
They did. Yeah. You underestimate my power.
The sand is coarse.
But I will say that Jared Leto, after hearing everything that he was doing to prep for this role, I think he kind of overdid it in a way. And I do enjoy it. I went back and I watched, Suicide Squad, the extended cut, to see this extra 2 minutes of him in there. And I think that maybe had it been his Joker been the main villain, or we would have seen more of the Joker, then I could, rank him as being better, or I could have a better idea of where he stands. But I think it's still too soon. We didn't see enough of him, and even the director said, hey, I wish I would have made him the main villain. And I'm still going to give him a chance. I think that some parts they do make me laugh. Some parts it's like, okay,
but you haven't written them off.
Yeah.
So pretty much my stance is, and this is a question I was wanting to ask you since you're a big Batman guy. So my thing with the Joker situation is, one, like you said, there's so many variables with Jared Leto's Joker that we never know. We're never going to be able to take into account, like, the scenes that were cut, David Ayer having to rush the script. I mean, if he had more time, would he have maybe made him the main villain? We don't know. And then, like you said, all the buildup of Leto, all the things he was doing, all the method stuff. But my thing is, so Heath Ledger's Joker is, like you said, it's one of the best villain performances of all time. Like, it really is one of the best performances, like, just in general. My thing with it is, so just think about this for a sec. For me, the thing with The Dark Knight is, one, it is propelled by his performance. I think his performance almost outshines the character because of what he did with it. And my thing with it is, I honestly don't feel like his Joker is very Joker-like. Like, honestly, I think that they could have done everything exactly the same in The Dark Knight, but just call his character a different name, and nobody would know the difference. Because I think his Joker is it's a whole different thing. Like, it really is. It's its own animal. And Jared Leto's Joker,
it would still be,
And Jared Leto's Joker, like, Suicide Squad, didn't enjoy it. Was not much of a fan. And it gets, like, worse the more you rewatch it, which sucks. But the most compelling parts to me were Jared Leto's Joker. I think him and Harley scenes were really cool. I like this really interesting, like, neo gangster version of the Joker, because that's what I think in my mind. When I think of the Joker, like, Heath Ledger's character is more of like an anarchist, I like the crime boss, the prince of crime, the clown prince of crime. I think of, like, the more gangster type. I like the grill because they said apparently Batman busted out his teeth. I think that's a cool aspect. Everybody was kind of weirded out by, like, all the noises he made. Like, I like they made the Joker, like, kind of animalistic in a way. Like, it was just, I don't know. I think it was, like you said, we didn't get to see enough of it to, like, properly judge it. But I really liked it. Like, when I see people, like, shitting on his performance, like, real bad, I'm like, okay, like, I understand it, like, wasn't what we all thought it was going to be, but it was not that bad. So, I don't know. That's my theory on the whole Joker Dark Knight thing.
Right. I can't blame him, but I will agree with you, and I guess I never thought about the gangster feel of the Joker. I mean, the Joker definitely has, when you think it's Joker, you do think more gangster. I still think of Jack Nicholson's Joker as being just the more kind of classic Joker. But now, if you were to make Joker a terrorist, then that's what Heath Ledger's Joker was. He was he was literally chaos. He was an agent of chaos. It's still too soon for Jared Leto, and watching him in performances like Dallas Buyers Club, and watching his performance, it's like, I could see him being the Joker when I thought about that. Yeah,
and that's the thing. I think I love Jared Leto as an actor. I've seen there's a movie on Netflix called Mr. Nobody that he stars in, and
Okay,
he has to play like essentially like 6 different roles, like 6 different versions of the same character. And I mean, his acting performance is just, it's phenomenal. Like, Jared Leto is out of this world. Like, I think he is one of the best acting workers today, honestly. But yeah, I don't think he really got a time to shine. I think he did, like you said, I think he did overdo it a little bit. I think he got a little too wrapped up in what he became and not like, you know, okay, now we actually need you to do things and perform, you know.
Right.
So I do get where you say that you overdid it a little bit. But I was curious because, like I said, I've been wanting to ask that question from another really big Batman fan. But that will go ahead and do it for the show, guys. Thank you so much, Brian Thomas, for coming on the show. Where can we find you? We obviously know we can find you on Batman vs. James Bond show, but you want to plug your little deets?
Okay. You can follow me on the various social media networks. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Batman vs. Bond. My website is batmanvsbond.com. I'm on the BS Podcast Network, bspodcastnetwork.com. My show drops usually about every Tuesday, Wednesday. So definitely check it out. Thank you for having me. I had a great time on this, and you really did have me thinking on this. That's no lie. I didn't know. The gerbils had to work overtime on a Sunday. I gotta tell you. So thanks.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to do the show, because I like talking about movies, and just I'm a nerd about movies. Like you said you're also just a film lover, and I love nerding out about movies, and just get the gears going. Let's just have some weird conversation. I think you can definitely classify this episode as pretty weird a little bit.
To me, this is normal. So I mean, maybe to everybody else it is, but it's always fun talking film with somebody else, the goal, especially somebody who appreciates it like you. So yeah, for sure. But yeah, guys, make sure you are checking out the Batman vs. James Bond show. It is a super fun podcast, and especially if you are a big fan of James Bond and Batman, like, it has a little bit of everything for you as far as he does news, he celebrates birthdays, does rankings, all sorts of stuff. Definitely check out his show, guys. And then, again, you can catch me at Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook at Deezus12. And I changed my YouTube channel, so my YouTube channel on all the episodes says Deezus Live. It is now just Deezus12, like everything else. So catch me on everything at Deezus12. The podcast episodes go up Tuesday, usually afternoon or evening, but every Tuesday, so be looking out. And I would tease next week's episode, but I don't remember what it's going to be. But I will say I'm planning a very fun Valentine's Day episode, guys. So be on the lookout for that. So make sure you subscribe to the iTunes feed or on Google Play Music, Stitcher, or Spreaker. But that will go ahead and do it for this episode of the podcast, guys. Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you. Bye-bye.